Hi, everybody. I'll just wait for people to join and make sure that my camera is well adjusted for us to be able to see what we want to see. Okay. Tighten it up a little bit, but not too tight. I hope everybody's ready to have some fun today. Okay, I think that looks about right. Get my shoulder out of there. Perfect. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Friday Dye Date here at the Wanda Works studio. I like to call my studio the Wanda Rosa, just for fun. It's strangely placed inside of this is not a striptease, by the way. It's strangely placed inside of an airport terminal, and I have the most amazing room. This is in my little kitchenette. And I'm super happy to have you join me today. We do this every Friday, and in order to find out the link for it, you need to be a member of the Welcome Mat. That doesn't mean you have to pay for a subscription, although I always wonder why you don't, because the same amazing information that I tell for these free videos is legions thick inside the Welcome Mat. And I also have a great backup where I post all the results of this and all the formulas that I used, and you can ask me questions and show me what you dyed. So it's a real value added part to this Friday Dye Date. And if you were once a member of the Welcome Mat, things are remarkably different now than they once were. We are full on teaching on a weekly basis. It's kind of exciting. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about the new Brilliant Green, which I just had to introduce a little while ago because of dye stuff's availability. I had to make a change, and I decided to make a change so that the color reflected its actual name, that it was Brilliant Green. But while I was getting ready for this class, I found, I have a lot of dye journals. This is one from Rug Cookie Magazine because I wanted to find, notations about old formulas I had used using Brilliant Green, and it's just so ridiculous. Like, I spent several minutes last night, maybe an hour, looking through this book, looking for recipes, because I have my other journal, more current one here at work. And so one beautiful thing happened, though. I have all these little tiny mouse-like scribblings where I'm talking about different things I want to encourage people about, or I'm writing notes for writing my articles for Rug Cookie Magazine, because this is primarily what this journal's about. But I found a place, and the writing is so tiny, I don't even know if you can see. I'm thinking, was I a mouse in another life? Anyway, I wrote it out in big form so I can see it now at my advanced age. I'll get rid of that one. And this is what I wrote, and it was sort of best practices that we should have when we're dyeing. Stop being afraid of wasting wool or money, making mistakes or a mess. Some people are very afraid of getting sick from dyes, or whatever else scares them. So get good advice. Do not listen to fools who are just jibber jabbering. You want to talk to someone who's actually knowledgeable about dyeing. Not that they do it a lot, but that they're flexible and that they're not hidebound to certain traditions. Use your eyes when you dye. Know what color your dyes are. Many of us just know the names of them, and we guess by the names that they're going to look a certain way, but that's not always true. Have fun. That's so important. People forget that this is a fun pursuit. Have some adventure. Let your dye practices take you where they may. And the most important thing to remember too is don't get burned by steam, because that's a real present danger. I think the number one thing I get hurt by most with dyeing is accidentally having my pinky finger extended, and I'll put it down in the hot dye bath. Not the cleverest moves I ever make. Anyway, I have some samples to show you because I've already, like I said before, this isn't a striptease, but I'm getting down to business, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a sample that I send out for people so that they can see what the new Brilliant Green looks like. And I'm going to come close to the camera because this is all I have left dyed of the old Brilliant Green so that you can see it. I'm making an X with the old Brilliant Green on top of the new Brilliant Green. So you can see this new brilliant green is a lot more satisfying and matches its name better. And I like that a lot. And so today though, what we're going to do is dye the same formulas with the old one and the new one. And it's going to be interesting. I have a sample here. Let me take good care of this, seeing as that's the only brilliant green sample I have dyed. Throw it on the floor. So I have this new Emily Carr collection, and one of the colors in it is called Grenion. So this was Grenion in with the old brilliant green and the new one. I'll come close again so you can have a good look. So you can kind of see in this situation, it's lighter and it's brighter. But if I wished this to look like that, all I have to do is add some seal brown, a little bit of seal brown. And we can talk about that later. I'm probably not going to do it because I have other things I want to talk about and do today. But I think if you recognize your dyes, and I'm super blessed because I just have 14 to deal with, so I know them like the back of my hand, and I understand what I need to do to make something happen. I might, for our Magic Carpet Dyer Circle Friday dye date follow-up, put that in there and maybe do it this afternoon. So let's get cracking. So one of the things I want us to know today is what happens when I use a lot of brilliant, what happens in a formula where I use an equal amount of brilliant to another dye, and what happens when I'm just using a little bit of brilliant, what the differences are between the two. So here is my pot for the old brilliant green, and here's my pot for the new brilliant green. Let's hope I remember. In our first formula, and all our formulas are going to be dyed over 1/4 teaspoon or over 1/4 yard of wool. So the first formula is, as you know, I just take hot water out of this dye bath. The first formula is 1/4 teaspoon of brilliant and 1/32 teaspoon of orange. All right. Here's my old brilliant, and let's make sure it goes in the old pot. That's super important. Today, after we're done, I'd like to sit a spell and have a little conversation with you and see you, because one of the sad things for me is when I do this, I can't really interact very well with you. And I'd like to interact with you. Oh, you know what? I got all prepared and left my new Magic Carpet dye over in my bag. I'll just nab it. I'm so sorry. So many things. Here, was it too far away? At least I have it here. Some weeks we have quite the series of calamities. Okay. Now I'm going to add the orange to these two pots, and we'll add some wool. Let's see what's going to happen. Orange, 1/32. I prefer using these spoons over those dye spoons that we can buy. They're cheaper and I can buy a lot more of them, and I like the way they work better. They suit me because I guess I'm a baker and I just feel more comfortable with these spoons. Plus they're not likely to get, you know, all pitted and stuff over time, and they're easier to clean. All right, so I'm going to stir this up. Now I just made these formulas up. I never did find adequate formulas to use, which I was quite surprised by. I guess I was tired yesterday because I can write a formula like ringing a bell. Why was I even looking for them? But in some ways, I'm kind of glad I did, because I found that great treasure of best dye practices. Here's my 1/4 yard. This is natural wool. I'm just going to dip it in here, poke it down and stir it up a little bit. I don't have any acid in here, and I won't be adding acid in here for a little while. So this is our darkest one that we started with first. And in a minute, as soon as I get them both in their pots and get it going, this one's taking a while to dissolve. I'm going to turn it up. I like to use paint Stir sticks, this is an old ruler from when I was in school. That's what I enjoy using for a stir stick. I don't know, they're strong, and they can withstand me lifting wool up to. Some paint sticks are cheap and they're not very thick, and I don't recommend those. I still have some schmutz here. If I was at home, I would take a whisk to that a little bit, and you can always dissolve it in a measuring cup too. I measured out dye to put in the measuring cup like a proper ladylike dyer, and then never used it because I don't normally. And when I'm doing this for you, I am not in my right mind. So I'm having to sort of make a performance for you, keep track of what I'm doing. And, but naturally, when my mind's not on what I'm doing, I'm going to revert to what I usually do at home. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm going to leave this in a little bit longer and then show you what they each look like. I'm going to turn up the temperature so things can get going. Now this dye practice I'm showing you here is reduced into what I hope is usually a 20-minute practice, but I think we're already at 12 minutes after. Sometimes it lasts a half an hour, and sometimes if we're really doing something interesting, we might go all the way to an hour, but there's always something amazing to learn and see. So I'm going to tip this up. You can see this makes the water colored. It makes the foam a turquoise color. And this, nothing happens to it. So that's one difference there. And I have to tell you, this is a hard changeover. There is no more Old Brilliant Green, and I can't make any more because the things that I used to make it are no longer available. So I'm now constructing it out of different ingredients, which I have to say I'm a little bit pleased about. I like things to match their names. Okay, so not that these are any way close to being taken up, but you can sort of see they have a close similarity. They're not that different. But they will be mildly when we get to the end. The value sort of stays the same. It's just a little hair lighter. And I would never do this during my usual dye practice, but I am going to add acid now because I want this to be done. And because I don't have a 3-ring circus going on today, just a 2-ring one, I'm going to be able to turn the heat up and these won't boil over. So I have about a teaspoon of citric acid on my ruler here. Again, this is what I do at home. And I'm going to put a whole teaspoon of that in this color, because it needs, in the new Brilliant Green, because this needs far more acid present than the old Brilliant Green. So with the old Brilliant Green, I just got my ruler wet and stuck it in, and I probably have maybe 1/16 of a teaspoon on there. There's a big difference to the acid use. This is going to be a very, very beautiful color. So this acid addition here has made a very quick effect. And because I use less acid, which I highly recommend, this is not acting as quickly. So that's what I would do if I wasn't doing this for you right now. I would leave it longer. So that's how much color is left in that one. And this is how much color is left in this one. So if I wait, these extra colors will be taken up, and we can do that. I know that while that's happening, I can talk to the resistance that I have been facing from people about the change of Brilliant Green, because I understand completely if people have made dye books and things that depend on the old Brilliant Green, that's going to make a change, because it made a change for me. Whenever I sell dye kits, I send out samples for people to try. And I usually send a couple of pages of samples. And I had to redo all of that stuff myself. I have to advise people every time I tell them to use Brilliant Green. They want to know, do I have the old one? Do I have the new one? And it's making a lot of panic and a lot of fear for people. And I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to do something like this where you're experimenting and you're figuring out what's going on. Geez, that sounds like Lisa Douglas's hotcakes. I want you to look and use what you have to make what you want to have appear, if that makes any sense. We can't not have change in dyes. It just doesn't work. And I'm not going to pretend that I haven't changed anything. I have changed something, and I have changed it for the better. And I hope people reckon that. It's for your own good. Yeah, like every mother said everywhere. If you only knew. So this is getting close to where I would call this done for the purposes of this class. But then we have the problem that I have a little bit of residual dye left in here. And I want it clean because my next color, I'm going to make a lighter color. And I don't want anything remaining in there. Oh, I've really done a funny now. So normally I have a tray, like a buffet tray that I put this stuff in. Oh, sometimes I use this. Let's hope it doesn't leak on me. I just throw this stuff in the buffet tray to put it in the sink. And I forgot my tray at home from last week. So there's always something. So here's the old brilliant green color. Let me lift this one up and we'll see them side by each. So here's the old and the new. So you can see it's a richer color. And if I wanted to make it more like this, I just would have to add more orange and that would make that happen. So this belonged to that pot and that belonged to that pot. Okay, new brilliant green, old brilliant green. All right. Now I have a couple of pieces of wool here that I just have on the side to kind of clear things up a little bit. So I'm going to add purple into this. I'm always going to use the purple one in that pot, and I'm always going to use this kind of, it was dyed a very, 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 very light blue. I'm going to put it in this one and just try to clear up a little bit of this dye. Now, knowing that I added so much acid into this water, I have to be careful about what I do next because I have a high acid pot now. So it takes three things to make color attached to wool. And it takes heat, it takes the dye, and it takes acid. So I can't control the acidity of this water unless I dump the water out and start again. And we don't have time for such. No, we do not. So what I want to do is I want to get some cool water out of my tap here. And I'm going to pour it in this dye pot in a minute. So when I add my dyes in my wool, I'm not going to have an immediate adherence. It'll be cooler. You can use that as a trick yourself. Even when wandering, to add and top up your water with some cold water will help stop immediate dark splotches. Okay, so I'm putting this in, and that's cooled things down quite a bit. And I'm going to back that up by turning this down a little. And you can see how that purple has turned kind of a beautiful bluish violet. That's nice. Put it over here. There's still a teensy bit of color in these pots, but I'm going to give it up. I'm going to give it up for done. And this one, of course, was white, so it turned green. All right. Now we will move on to our next one. So now remember, I've cooled this down with cold water. And this time I'm going to add 1/64 teaspoon of brilliant green to each pot, the new one and the old one. Here's my new brilliant. And I'm going to make a weird color, not one people usually want to run after. And now my old brilliant in this pot. Okay. Now I'm going to make a color people don't usually want to run after, and that's one of my favorite things to make, which is some kind of weird neutral. So I'm going to add 1/32 of black to each of these. Going to give this a stir up. Now this one's already hot, and remember I was keeping this one cool, so things aren't dissolving as quickly and yada yada. I hope you guys don't hate when I say that. I don't know what other words to put in there. We already know what I did. Now in the pot, these look exactly the same. Let's see what they look like in this glass. Well, that's an interesting kind of color. Let's see what this other one looks like. Not that dissimilar. So let's do the wool. See how it all plays out. I sometimes joke that watching this dye show is a little bit like watching paint dry, because there's a lot of waiting when we're dyeing. That's why I like to have a lot of things on the go sometimes in these shows, because I get tired of waiting. And I put the new brilliant green piece in first. Remember last week when I talked to you about when we're making things that are close, which in this case, of course I am, that we should really mark our wool with Tyvek labels written with magic marker and using safety pins so we know which one was which. And I still strongly believe that, just not doing it this week. You know what I'm always saying, do as I'm saying, not as I'm doing often in these classes. So this wool that I put in here has become splotchier because of, it was really hot when I put that in. I have a little bit of foaming up happening from my Synthropol wool from the sink, and I'm not the least bit concerned about that. That matters not. So it's open for debate whether I'm going to need to add more acid in this, because it's sort of a little bit of a lightish color. There's not much dye in it, let me put it that way. And already you can see this one has taken up almost everything. I'll just bring it to a boil and it'll be fine. So there was definitely enough acid in there. This one still has a little color remaining, but I'm also going to turn it up and give it another minute. So when you use less dye, it takes less time too, right? And it needs less acid. Yeah. Also, let me talk about my water practices. You notice I'm not dumping it out and getting a new dye pot every single time I'm dyeing something. If I had to do that, I'm a production dyer. I need tons of dyed wool for my business. I wouldn't get anything done because I'd just be running water and emptying it into the pot. So I'm always trying to encourage people, try to think as though you live in a desert and it's really hard for you to get water. Like, how can you reuse this water? I'll keep this sink. If I were dyeing at home, I have a double sink instead of a single one. This is a little kitchenette that would have all the comforts of home. And I'll just keep a hot sink going the whole day long and just keep adding wool as I need it, even before I need it. I'll see that I'm starting to get low and I'll run and get some more. And I'll leave it in the sink all the time, but before I add it into my pot, I will heat it up. Because I like, if I'm adding wool into a hot pot, hot water pot, I like the wool to be as close to this temperature as I can get it. If I do that, I'm more sure that I'm not going to have white core. That's an important thing you want to try to avoid if it's important to you. Some people don't care. There's some dye methods I have that look like denim, worn out denim, and I deliberately make certain things happen, but mostly we don't want to have white core if we can at all help it. Recently, I was doing some dye work for one of my friends and my customers. It's always great when your friends or your customers become friends. And I noticed that I took wool off the same bolt and some of it was severely wrinkled. And I still don't understand what causes that. I had some pieces of wool that were off the same bolt and they didn't do it, and others wrinkled up like crazy. So this one's all done. This is the old Brilliant. And the new Brilliant takes a bit longer because it needs more acid and it needs more heat. And I cooled it off so it would be more evenly spread around the wool. But now I'm paying the price. I'm almost there. You can see what I'm doing is really pushing it around, stirring it. I'm even spilling some water out of it because I'm pushing it so hard. And that's always helpful to get dye to be taken up, because you're forcing water to push through your wool, and in the water is the dye. So now I would call that as close to damn it as to swearing. I think we're good. Let's take this out and take a look at them. So they're very closely related. It's interesting how they're different light and dark parts. I would combine those as though they were one. And that's because we didn't use as much brilliant green, so the effect wasn't as strong. Okay, it's important to note that. All right, our last one that we're going to do, oh, let me clear up these babies if I can. We're going to use an equal amount of brilliant green and blue. So they're sort of neighboring colors. They're on the same side of the color wheel. Let's see what happens when we do that. So first we cross-purposed it. We had green and orange was on the other side of the color wheel. Has a certain kind of a canceling effect. It's not red, but it will have a certain influence. And then we went right to a neutralizer. I like to, when I want to neutralize cool colors, use black. I don't like to use their opposite color because it will make the color of dye I'm using disappear, and it'll hop over to a neighboring color. And I don't like that. So if I had added a brown to it, it would have turned it, probably would have turned it into some sort of a yellow green. I don't want that. I like it to stay green if it can. All right, so here we go. This one's going to take a little longer too, because the amount of dye, right? So together in each one, there'll be half a teaspoon of dye. So what I'm going to do is open us up with some questions, I think, about this topic. Let me see. Here we go. ¼ teaspoon of new brilliant in my new brilliant pot, and you'll see my marking really helps me keep on track, and I'm all for marking things with clothespins. It's great. They can take the heat. They're not going to get burnt. They're not going to get steamed and not be useful anymore. Super helpful. So there's my ¼ of each brilliant, the new and the old. Now I'm going to add blue. You know, if I added blue violet, it would turn into a beautiful blue. I don't know if you knew that or not. You run out of blue or you're worried about it fading out. There's a ¼ teaspoon of blue in you. ¼ teaspoon of blue in you. All right. Let's just let that mixed. Probably use a bigger stir so I don't stick my pinky in there. You might need it for drinking tea. Okay. Turn around, turn around. All right, let's get some wool. Now, I'm seriously considering if I should cool this down also. I mean, it's fun not to cool it down because you get all of these sort of interesting splotches in your wool. I used to enjoy that. And I still sort of do enjoy it, but I like to have more control over it. Okay, here we go. Both are cooled down somewhat, and I'm also going to have to add quite a bit of acid to both the new brilliant green and the old brilliant green due to the fact of how much dye I've added in there. Because more dye, you have to use more acid. Less dye, less acid. Okay, so I'm putting this, oh, this is going to be a honey of a color. Ooh, baby. Woo! I'm telling you, there's no life like it in the dye pots. It's so joyful. All right, let's put this one in here and see what it looks like. So these are equal measures. Beautiful. I'll show you in a second as soon as I get this stirred in. Oh my. You know, I'm always telling you guys not to be in love with your boyfriend, Hugh, but I do love colors. You just can't trust them. All right, look at that. They look very similar as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave these to percolate. And sorry about that. I'm going to leave these to cook away a little, and we properly should say process. And I want to talk about something that's upcoming for me, and it's called the Color Cure. It's a class, and a few weeks ago, I had something amazing happen. One of my students said that she didn't, even though she did all the exercises on my book, The Color Lab, she still wasn't fully understanding how color worked, and she didn't feel confident about it. And another person piped up in our Thursday Zoom class and said the same thing. She said, yeah, that's happened to me too. Like I read and I can't understand, and I do things, and I still don't understand why I'm not understanding it. If that makes any sense. As I related, I'm sure they were a lot more able to speak to their feelings than I am right now. And I got very broody about that, meaning like a hen. I just didn't know where to set. I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, I have them all in there. And if you just go step by step through it and you do all the work and you keep working at it, you're going to have a slow dawning. You're going to start to understand what to do. But then I was thinking about what happens when a person, meaning myself or anyone else, learns a hard thing. You usually have a guide. Something's very difficult for you, like algebra was a difficult concept for me. I would get homework and feel like, okay, I got this. I know what to do. And I would start off properly, and then I would see something and I would hair off in the wrong direction. Take my work back. My teacher would say, look at how great you did at this beginning part. But when you got to this part, you suddenly were doing something no man has ever seen before. And I was like, oh my goodness. So it made me really realize that I need to give another class where I'm very, very involved with each student, where I'm helping them go through the 4 components of color. And so I started the Color Cure. It's going to begin on March 1st. There's 4 components, and each one is separate, and each one has a separate fee. I recommend that everybody take them all in case, because one thing is interrelated to the other, in case you don't know where your stumbling block is. And we all have them. We all certainly have them about color. We get overly involved with hue because we love color so much. And it doesn't allow us to see the working parts of color, the parts that will actually, I jokingly like to say, change the baby's diaper and get the groceries and bring them home and put them in the cupboard. And so that's what our first month's focus is going to be. So there's 4 weeks of me interacting with you very much. And I'm giving this class in 2 places. I'm going to give it in the welcome mat, and I am giving it on Facebook. And to tell you the truth, I am going to work to a higher standard on the welcome mat because that's my home planet. I'm going to give the people everything, the same things, but I've got years of backup information on the welcome mat that I can just link for people to go and look at when they have a question, or if I need to demonstrate something, I have all these videos and things on there that can help support that. Every week we'll have a Zoom meeting and everyone can come, of course, and I'm giving you 100% both places, but I have so much more I can offer you if you take it on the welcome mat. So we can talk about that later when we're having our little visiting time. I hope you didn't mind that little commercial. I really feel strongly that before I die, I'm not like this, before I'm gone from this planet, and I'm not going anywhere that I know of, but I really want to have like a big group of people who understand color in a way that you just have a knowing of the way to act. I often tell people too, I've been studying color since I first began doing anything. I just love color. But when I started rug cooking, I realized how low my understanding was of it when I needed to do something. We just don't understand the fulsomeness of it. So the Color Cure is going to cure us of what ails us about color. And so much of it has to do with your individual thoughts on it. So I'm adding another teaspoon of acid into this dye pot. I'm going to stir it around so it doesn't get splotchy or too splotchy. And I'm going to add about 1/4 of that amount into this pot because it's a dark color, so that's why I'm adding more. You can ask me questions about this afterwards. I've had several questions about the Color Cure. about people couldn't come to the Zooms. And although this Zoom show is super informative, when I'm teaching, I like to use Zoom to uplift people, make a connection with them, uphold their learning process, encourage them. But the bulk of the learning is going to take place with the written word, with videos, with pictures and slideshows. So, and your actual own work, that's where the real work begins, is when you and color meet. And that's where your understanding evolves. All right, so while I'm stirring this around, does anybody have any questions for me today? I look forward to them.
Wanda?
Yes, dear.
Oh, it's Jane. And
Hi.
Hi. I just wondered, I've never seen you add cool water to a dye bath.
I just did. Yeah.
Yeah, but why?
I added it so that I could, like when I was saying before, like there's 3 things that have to be present to make dye actual. So you have to have hot water, you have to have acid present, and you have to have heat. So the water was very hot and it was very highly acid. And so I wanted to stop it from grabbing on so quickly. So I took away one of those components and it works like a miracle.
Oh,
I can't take away the acid, you know, and I can't take away the dye because I want it in there. I need to lessen the thing I can control, which is the temperature of the water. That's a great question. And I'm glad to, yeah.
It's a great.
It's just me trying to control my dye pots.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Because, you know, basically, I don't want to start with a fresh pot every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question, Wanda. It's Catherine. Hi. First off, great tip about the Tyvek labels. I just cut up a mailing thing, and yeah, that works great. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I struggle with, like, in the first batch you did, you're saying you added some orange to the green because orange kind of has a canceling effect. So you're trying to dull the green down or not have it be like quite so green, or?
Well, I'm going to show you by showing you the strengths aren't equal because I think I have more wool. I dyed more wool. Well, they might be equal. I shouldn't say that. Here is the new brilliant green. And here is a new brilliant green with orange. So I'm just going to bring it over to you so you can see the differences. See?
Oh, huh. Okay.
It turned it more yellow.
Okay.
And dulled it down. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was a great question. I'm glad to show you.
Because I struggle when we're talking about making colors like a little less saturated or whatever, whether to add seal brown, chocolate brown, black, or something that would have a canceling effect.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways to make that happen. The first way is to go across the color wheel, which in this case would be red. I would use red to cancel that out. But I don't necessarily want to cancel it out. I just want to tame my line a little bit, just a little tiny bit. So I go over from its opposite color, and that keeps a lessening of the change. And then with all cool colors, I like to use black.
Yes.
With all warm colors, I like to use brown. And I almost always use seal brown. But if I really want to make, like, let's say I'm making a really beautiful soft palette, there's a palette on the Welcome Mat called Longworth. You know, I dyed like all these colors, 14 colors or something, because I'm always making collections and putting them out there. And they were all dyed with chocolate brown. And so it was the colors plus chocolate brown. And it was just beautiful what happened there. So it all depends on the quality of color you want. That would be like a Sibyllo Sicca soft is beautiful color. You know, they're dull, but they look lovely. I can't explain it very well. They're not deadened, right? They're just soft and beautiful.
Okay.
Soft and beautiful. Yeah. But I'll put that in our notes, and you can just hop over there and take a look at them, and you'll see. I also want to encourage people to look at formulas that I publish for information. So As everyone knows, I highly recommend you dye samples of all your dye colors. Otherwise, you are working blind. It's like you're making Indian food and you don't know you're going over and putting Italian spices in it. Like you literally don't know what you're working with because you have no knowledge of what is in that Italian spice jar. So once you have a taste of it, you know that it'll fit there, right? And if you don't understand what it looks like, you won't know what to do with it. It's too big of a mystery. And that's really helpful, I think, if you wanted to do that. It would help you learn quite a bit, Catherine, if you just took and made samples. And I know I sent you a sample, but there's nothing like having your own samples in your own house.
Yeah, plus I have other dyes too.
Yes,
that
of course, you should know what they
no
look like.
idea.
They're frequently, including mine, have fashion needs, and it's absolutely ridiculous. It's so unhelpful. What seal brown?
Right.
What the hell means nothing, nothing at all. So yeah, we need to know what they look like. Hi, how are you? Do you have a question for me today?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I am wondering about your wandering technique, and
Yeah.
will that work dyeing yarn?
You have never seen yarn so beautiful as it
Okay.
done. It's amazing.
Okay, so you have a class in it, I see. Does that have a starting point, or is it just a drop in, or what?
Well, that class
Or is
is
that
not all running, but you can still take it. All the
Okay.
information there, and you can just buy it and go in there. But last
Okay.
week, welcome Matt, I put a link to Wandering, or whenever we last spoke about it.
Okay.
So you might want to go back, and we even did Wandering in one of these dye dates. So if you look at all discussions in the
Okay.
Magic Carpet Dye, keep going back
Okay.
several pages,
Okay.
you'll be able to see where we actually did it in this dye show. So that'll
Okay.
probably be helpful.
All
If
right.
you, I call that Wandering class Beyond Wandering, because I just take you on a big, huge adventure with it too.
Okay.
And there's tons of formulas inside that as well to get you
Okay.
started. Yeah,
All right, great, thanks.
beautiful, everything. Yeah. Fleece or yarn or anything.
All right, good.
For asking. Are there any other questions out there? Is there anything anybody feels afraid of when they're dying? No, I like these fearless warriors. All right, let's take this out and have a look at it. And of course, these are still wet. So the color is going to change a little, get a little lighter. This one's already cleared. This new brilliant green often has a little residual dye left in it. I don't ever worry about that because I like the ever-changing miracles that I can create by just popping wool in there. So I would just leave those in there until they change, and I'll show you what they look like. But here's what these two look like. So the old brilliant green and the new brilliant green. So they're pretty close again. It's not that much difference, and I'd probably use those as though they were one. So if no one has any questions about this, I think we should go sit a spell. And you guys can ask me questions if you have them about the color cure or any other thing, about Welcome Mat membership, about what the Welcome Mat looks like now. You see I have my sign here behind me now about Wanda Works. That's where you need to go for every colorful thing you want. So if you're getting dizzy easily, don't look. Okay. So now I'm out here in my proper studio, and I will show you because I'm not ashamed of my hellacious messes. So I have people come here and they take classes. There's my giant collection of wool, and I have a sewing cupboard, and I have my cupboard with my desk in it. And I also have a really amazing closet, which is really vile in there right now, so you can't see that. We probably would never be able to get out again. So let's put you guys to, let me see. I want to see everybody. There. Okay. So does anybody have anything they want to ask me or anything that they'd like to know about?
Wanda, it's Patrice. I want to do a value swatch in gray, but I just want to do 1/32 yards. So what amount of dye should I start with?
Well, I like to do that with dry dye, honey.
Yes.
So I don't do it by making a mixture or a formula, sort of. I don't dilute the dye. I decide and just take it right from the jar. So you decide what you want your first value to be, and you're doing it over 1/32. That makes it a little bit hard because it's a pretty small piece of wool. So you might have to start with 1/8 of an inch of a round damp toothpick, I think, as crazy as that sounds. Because for your first value, it won't have any dye on it. And that will be
Right.
your second value. And then each one, double the amount of dye that you use. And you'll have to be careful when you switch from toothpicks to measures, because sometimes we get a little wobble in there, because the toothpicks, sometimes people aren't that accurate with them. But just use your eye. If you dye it, you have a wobble between there, just correct the one on one side of the wobble or the other side. It's easy enough.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, you just use your eye. You can do it. Anyone else?
I do have a question. I'm working on a pet portrait of a former dog. He's all
Yeah.
black. Well,
Yeah.
he shows all black, but
Yeah, of course.
there's other colors in there, like dark brown, and you can see blue sometimes, and other
There should
things like
be other
that.
colors. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if I'm doing dyeing, do I just go for a really, really, really dark blue, or can you add colors to black to make them like a
Yes.
blue black?
Yeah. This is so exciting because I love look at me. I
just don't know where to start.
Well, you have good instincts.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing a portrait, I pay
Mhm.
no attention to color whatsoever, and I pay attention to value.
Okay.
I do pay attention. I don't pay attention to hue. Let me say that. I pay attention to value. I pay attention to the temperature and the saturation. So this is going to seem like a big fire hose I'm going to blow at you, but here we go. Things that are close on your dog, depending on how his position is, like let's
Mhm.
say his muzzle is
Yeah.
here, like to us, and his body's back here, or one side of him is facing us and the other side not so much. You'll want to use warmer colors there that are brighter. And strangely, you can influence the temperature of black. So if I want black to appear warmer, I
Mhm.
overdye black wool off the bolt with orange, because orange is the warm color. And right away, it makes it advance.
Okay.
And if I want to have a cool black, right? So for a shadowy place, or if I wanted to have some violet involved, so I could
Yeah.
overdye the black with blue violet and then overdye the black with blue. So I'd have two sort of ways that I can lean there. You can overdye black with anything, but you have to use like maybe 2 teaspoons of dye over a 1/4 yard or so.
Okay. Yeah.
You have to be patient too. I like to put those things in the oven because that all over temperature can be higher than us just using boiling water. The oven, you can bring it up to 400, which is going to mean the color will take up better. And you have to add a lot of acid
Okay.
because so much dye, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So you can do that. And you can also the stuff you already have. This is something interesting to make beautiful black things to use with your dog.
Yeah.
Just look for anything that's a close value, all different colors, and you can overdye them in a big pot with a bunch of black,
Okay.
right? And they'll come out all kind of blacky colorful. You won't really see the colors, but there'll be all these different amazing blacks.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so many wonderful things you can do. Yeah.
All right. I'll try it.
I
I can do it.
Yeah, you can do it. And the other
I
thing
can
you
do
can do is make an amazing spot dye
Yeah.
over your yarn and then just pour black all over it.
So,
Interesting your
yeah.
blacks. And
yeah. So I don't have any, all of my yarn that I dye is, it's New Zealand rug wool and it's all cream color. So
Yeah.
then I would dye that black first and then do things to it, or,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
all right.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And don't be afraid to use a lot of black.
Yeah, I've noticed, at least with the dyes I'm using, if you don't, they come out purple, which is fine for some things, but if you want black, you have
Yeah.
to dump it
Yeah.
on. So,
Yeah, yesterday in class too. So black is not something that you want to use to make gray, just to go over that too.
Yeah.
Black is great when it's really dark, but when it's in lighter values, it'll have a cast. So sometimes it looks a little lavender. Some are far worse than others. Some blacks are just right out purple.
Yeah.
And some will have little leanings. The gray will look a little more purple or blue than you
Mhm.
want, but you can just add a warm color to neutralize that.
Okay.
So if you find for the dog's shine on his nose or
Mhm.
in his eye that you need some medium gray or something, you want to just be aware that you can make it turn to gray by
Okay.
adding warm to neutralize that coolness of that black. I'm really full of piss and vinegar today.
You
Keep the questions-
are. I'll put you on speed dial.
keep the questions coming.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's important. I was always feeling let down when I would stop these because I was like, oh, I feel like I didn't even see anybody or connect with anybody. I'm just like a "Arp, arp, arp, arp." But I don't mind that, but I think it's really good if I can address what you're doing right now. You know, what do you need help with? Or what questions are you having when I'm doing this? Does anybody have any other questions that they want to go over? No. Any questions about the color cure? Who's terrified?
Me.
Terrified?
I can't.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
like I'm still I will always be learning about color, but I think we're working in a medium that is only about color and we barely know anything about it as a collective. We're just kind of, if we're in a dark room, we're just feeling for that string for the light, and we don't need to be feeling that. I know that like I am very determined that when people take this class, you know, and they're participating, that they're going to have gained a greater understanding than they have now, that they'll be able to make the decisions like I make on Thursday when I'm teaching. I just know right away what's wrong. And the only reason I know right away what's wrong is because I'm like a little doctor. Oh, because I understand color and I've studied all the problems it can have. And there really only are 4 or 5 problems we run into. And once we understand how it acts and what the different parts of us do, the different parts of it does for us, then we gain this huge bump up of, like, I like to call it head knowing, like things people have taught you, and heart understanding, where you can just act with confidence because you know. And I love that when that happens. You don't need me anymore. It's good. Yeah,
I can't wait. I'm really excited about the class. So
I am too. I'm also excited about the design we're going to use because I am helping you learn how to make an abstracted design out of something we see all the time. And I'm super excited about that part of it too.
cool.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you for being excited.
So okay, so Monday, the first Zoom isn't till March 7th is the first
Yeah.
Zoom. So on
Yep.
March 1st will be the first part, the written part of the class.
Yeah, I'm going to have a video and I'm also having a written part. I might have a slideshow too, and it'll actually be ready on the weekend. I'm going to do all that tomorrow and the
Ooh.
next.
Okay.
So the
Wanda,
people that will get it ahead of time. Yeah.
Patrice, at what point will we be doing the design part so we can actually get started hooking?
That minute, as soon as you see it.
the first week.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yep,
I
and-
have another question too.
Yeah.
It's a little
Can I
unrelated.
follow up? Can I just follow up on that?
Oh, yes,
just-
yes.
Understand what's going to happen. So right away, I'm going to get you making your pattern, and that's going to be an intensive, half a day or something for you. It's not going to be hard.
Okay.
And then right after that, hot in the heels, I am going to be disciplining you to the hues that you're going to be experimenting with in that pattern. And it can change as it goes through the pattern, but I'll talk about more of that later. Like the first week, you're probably going to say, could you please shut the hose off? because I want you to be intensely like involved with creating this. And it's okay if you have to, several people said to me, oh, I can't go to the Zoom, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. It doesn't matter. You can go back for an entire year, but I'm not going to run to answer your questions though. Not like I will this first month. I'm good. That's all I'm going to do is my welcome at work and this work. So I'll be in it up to my elbows.
Sounds fun. I have another question on dyeing with the kitchen kettle. I dye usually in like 1/8 yards rather than 1/4 yards. And I kind of want mine to be splotchy. I'm trying to work on something for my zebra in
there's nothing
a
wrong with
blue and turquoise, a brilliant blue and turquoise. And then I want to add some of the magic carpet brilliant green. And I actually want it a little splotchy. Should I just stir less?
No, leave your water hot, crowd your wool. I'd be dyeing more bigger pieces of wool in that pot to get it splotchy.
So if I want to just dye if I just want to dye 1/8 of a yard, I need to use a smaller pot.
I would. Yep.
Yeah.
It's all about,
Because otherwise it just folded,
well, you'll see the results of what happened once, like my first experiment will be pretty solid, right? Because there wasn't very much acid till the end. After that, my pot has acid, it has rolling boil, it has dye, and baboomsha. As soon as the wool goes in there, it's like, and if the one piece of wool is like sticking up or down in a corner or something, and everybody else gets it first, then it's going to be lighter. And I understand people's need for splotchy wool. I'm just a control freak about the values, right? And I don't want that happening. If I want that happening to me, I use wanderings where there's many colors in it. And that's okay. Everybody works to their own strengths. Yeah. So that's what you want to do to have it be splotchy. Have a tight pot. Don't stir as much. Have your water hot and the dye in it when you add your wool. All of that
too, and the acid in it.
Nope.
Okay, add the acid later.
You can add your acid sooner than you ordinarily would, but don't stir it after you add it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the stirring is what keeps everything smooth. So just stop stirring after you add it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, Patrice. Thank you. Anybody else? No? All done? Okay, well, we've been here for an hour and I appreciate you being here. And I look forward to whatever it is we're going to do next week. Goodness only knows, but it always comes out of your questions and things that you're thinking about and asking me. So keep that business coming. And I guess I'll see you with Heart to Heart. You don't have a very long time to join the Color Cure. I'm not going to take any students after March 7th. So that's the end of that for Hugh. And I'll open it back up when we turn to value so that people can join again. All right. Thank you very much. Oh, Bevs, you're saying something to me, love, and your mic's not on. So
I said the hooking on Saturdays next, right?
babe, thank you. I knew I was forgetting something when I said that. You are forgetting something serious. Yeah, we're going to have a hook in tomorrow starting at 2 for 2 or 3 hours, and everybody's welcome to come. I'm going to send it out to all members of the Welcome Mat, whether they're paid subscribers or not. We're going to see how this goes. And if it goes well, we'll do it a couple of times a month. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be hooking. Imagine that.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Anything else? Thank you for reminding me, Bev. I think you better just come live here with me. You're really being a big catalyst today. Bless your heart. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye, Wanda. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.